same as like a biological female, I mean, I'll do it because like you're not hurting anyone. As long as you're not hurting anyone, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll call you she, her, whatever. But it's like there are a couple things that like with like sports and like the whole bathroom thing. I think that's a bit iffy, and it needs to like get discussed way more. I mean, I get like yeah, the whole like sports thing. I get like people before were saying that like yeah, there are like big issues, and of course I agree with that. But like I think it's we're able to like care about two issues at once, because like there are trans athletes and they are there. It's not like we can just like don't give a fuck about them and just like keep doing. We have to care about like we have to deal with every issue regarding that, I think.
I
I
have
don't
a
know.
question.
I'd like to move the goalpost a little bit here to the pronoun situation. In regards to the difference between respect and being civil, right?
Mhm.
Having respect, I don't feel that anybody owes me respect. I feel like respect is something that you earn. Respect is something that it is holding somebody in a high regard. Um, versus being civil, being courteous, being kind to somebody. Treating somebody as a human is a different situation. Now, I do agree, that in the workplace, for instance, there's people being fired or being terminated from their job because they don't agree with the pronoun ideology. Now, is that fair for them? You know, it's one thing that you're going out of your way at work and you see that your coworker is somebody of the LGBT community and you're mistreating them and or misgendering them on purpose versus you know being like, okay, I don't I whatever, like if I have somebody in my a coworker of mine that's a trans woman, for example. uh, I don't have a problem with calling them by their name or using other gender neutral, um, ways to communicate with that person without offending them. But to say that, or you have to call somebody their preferred pronoun or you will get terminated from your job. They just passed a law in California. I think it's SB 419 or something like that, that a parent will go to jail. It will be a misdemeanor if they don't respect their child's pronouns, their preferred pronouns. What's your take on that?
Before you go ahead and answer that question, I'll be right back. Keep going the conversation. I'm just running to the restroom, okay? So keep going the conversation.
What was the question again? You
Like,
said
what's you
something
guys'
about.
take on the law that was passed in California that a parent will get a misdemeanor if they don't respect their child's preferred pronoun?
Oh, I'm not familiar with that, so I can't speak to it.
I mean, I
I
think
think
that
it,
like yeah, like not
As
respecting
far
like
oh,
no,
sorry.
you go first. I'm sorry.
I
You're
was gonna say,
good.
as far as I know, I don't think that was passed yet, and that's along the same lines of oh shit, well, the refugee bill that was talked about in the last panel of this live. I, I I think this is another thing that we need to talk about is like a fringe majority or fringe minority, um, that it's going to affect again. And I don't mean to discredit people's voices, but when you have there, if I can find someone who's a refugee going to California strictly because they've been subjected to anti-trans whatever, I would love to hear from them. I want to hear their side of the story. I think that we have these knee jerk reactions when it comes to these bills and these legislatures that are enacting policies on both sides on saying we're going to restrict this and we're going to allow this. my stance on any government total is we need to get rid of fucking big government. So let that stand on the record right now.
And you know what? Can I just add something?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Most people, I would argue, most of us read about these laws from media outlets, right? But rarely do we actually read. I mean, I do because I'm a nerd. I actually pull up literally the orders, you know, provided by the government, provided by the courts, and read all the jargon, the law jargon, because that's where a lot of the misinterpretation happens. Is someone will look at CNN or Fox News, and you're essentially getting a secondhand opinion about a law.
You hit the
that
nail on the head. People
they don't.
read about the laws instead of actually reading the law that was enacted.
Absolutely.
Completely
Thank you
fucking
so much for saying that, Karina.
completely fucking different. Like
These
and
laws,
thing, like, and it happens on both sides of the aisle. And there's shit that's always shoved into these bills and these laws that
Yeah.
aren't even about the law on the preface of the law. So, and I think that's what we really need to get, you know, to the face value of things, is that we're getting duped by everybody, and
Yeah.
we're getting pinned against each other for absolutely no reason. There's no reason why we can't have these civil conversations. There's no reason why our lawmakers shouldn't be having these civil conversations that we're having right now. And I mean, no offense to anybody, but all of us are nobodies. We're nobodies.
I agree.
We're not going to sign laws into action. We're not going to change our legislature. And again, I don't mean any, you know, like I mean that in no malice, but like, why can't our legislatures and our politicians have these conversations? Is because they refuse to. They like dividing the country, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and well, I think as a community, as a society, we get so used to, in this day and age especially, to just digesting these tidbits of bits and pieces of information and just kind of being spoon-fed these opinions, if you will, or, okay, well, here's the Cliff Notes. You know, let me date myself a little bit here. But, you know, here's the Cliff Notes on what this topic is. Here's the Cliff Notes on what this law says, on what it's about. And you can look at 4 or 5 different media outlets reporting on the same law, and they're all telling you it's a different flavor of law. And it's such a minority for people to actually go and look at it, read through the legislation, not to mention it's not exactly presented in a form that's easily consumed by the average person. And so it's really difficult to have the conversations that need to be had to truly know what is happening, what's not happening. And so it's easier for people to just take a step back and go, well, this source of information where I get all my information from told me that it means this. And so that's how I feel about it. And it makes it really difficult to have meaningful conversations about what is actually going on or what is not going on, because we just don't have the information, either from just not having access to it or not taking the time to really indulge in it and understand.
Correct. I agree with that 100%.
I'd just like to add that I actually did read the bill, which is why I had brought it up, was because I've seen somebody else bring up the bill in another debate. And so I looked it up to see if it was an actual thing, if it was factual, and it was a bill that actually did pass.
But I'm almost positive that the bill is not representing by the words that you used to describe the bill, because what you said was parents are getting, what did you say, that they're being penalized?
It is a misdemeanor to not use the preferred pronouns. That was almost verbatim what the bill says.
You know, I just think that like I feel like there's just so much hate on both sides. You know what I mean?
Like, sir, can you give the bill number real fast, Flack? Sorry.
Let me see if I
you're
can
good,
find it. I know it's like SB 419, something like that. SB 19. I don't know if I click out of here if it'll take me out the live or not, but I'd like to look it up myself.
I just want to make sure that I'm reading the room correctly. Other than the host, am I the only trans woman on as a guest? Or trans person? I'm assuming, other than the host.
Probably.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I just think that like there's so much like hate on both sides, and
Yeah.
like I just think that, you know, it's the one thing that I agree with, like Gabe and like Hoffer earlier, if he's still here. Like, love is just the answer. Like, people need to like mind their own business, and like as long as like you're not like hurting anybody, I mean, just go for whatever you want. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but we can't do that if we don't even want to try and understand where people are coming from. So
Oh,
like I'm sitting here having this conversation, and I'm telling you now, like I probably might not ever understand how. I want to understand how a black person feels. I want to understand how a Jewish person feels. I want to understand how a trans person feels. But I'm sitting here in this conversation trying to understand, and that's the first step. And people don't even want to fucking take that step. And that's the
oh no, yeah, for
like
sure.
they just immediately want to shut it down and say, "Oh, this is weird." And this goes back to what I said earlier: is it's because the loudest voices of any community are the most off-putting, in my opinion. And that goes for Republicans, Democrats, liberals,
S
conservatives,
S
anybody,
SB
anybody.
SB 219.
No, but yeah, bro, like the whole thing that I was joking about it earlier. I do really fuck with Wizards though. I 100% recommend Hogwarts Legacy, but like the whole thing where like they were straight up like bullying people who were playing the game. That shit was so fucked up. Instead of like, you know, just like, I don't know, bro. It's a video game. Like, I feel like there are way bigger issues than that. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that like, yeah, people just like need to be more tolerant with each other, I think. Yeah. Damn,
Go
everybody
quiet.
dipped out of bro, everybody.
So I'm
No,
gonna bring up.
I'm reading. I'm
No,
reading
I
the
agree.
you sent me. I'm sorry. I'm still here. I'm listening. I'm reading the
Oh,
bill.
okay, yeah.
I think one of the questions that really comes up as far as this topic, when you sit there and you sit in a room or you sit on a panel and you say, okay, are trans women women, yes or no, it so quickly diverts off to so many other topics that are related and they're important and they need to be discussed. But it's one of those things that, I mean, kind of just like we were saying earlier, these conversations don't happen with the frequency and depth that they need to happen. And I think it's really easy that there's so many, even like, just look at the comments. There's so many questions people have. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And
Yeah.
so when you have something that is very relevant to the world around us and to so many people around us, but we just don't talk about it. We just don't dig into all these different categories. There's so many questions rattling around in the average person's brain on that topic. It makes it hard to answer any one question because there's so many other factors too. It's a simple question, but it's not a simple question.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
each person is going to have their own list of questions that they need to understand for themselves to be able to answer the question at hand. And when you're not having meaningful conversations like this and really listening, respectfully, which I know is really hard for some people, but being able to listen to an opposing opinion and hear that other person and understand where they're coming from to reach a greater understanding for yourself, it's just not happening. And so everything just gets so muddled and so confused. And so it's just one of those things that it becomes really difficult to pin down because I think there's so many other hanging factors that people are trying to figure out and understand for themselves on how they feel about the topic that they can't even really come to a clear answer to the question.
Yeah.
Earlier today, I was a part of a live with, I want to say, 3 non-trans women and a non-trans man, and we were talking about like transhood and things like that. And so obviously, their argument was that trans women are different than women, right? But the discussion was so respectful. And I think what it took on my part, because obviously I was, if you want to look at philosophy, I was the one that was outnumbered. But the fact that I did not argue or try to change their point of view, which is typical of debates, right, on TikTok. That's what it feels like. It's like people are just battling to change each other's worldviews. When I'm a therapist, y'all, and I'm telling you, I've worked with people and I've tried to shift their worldview to be healthier for them. That takes months, and we expect to literally convert people on a TikTok, and it's not realistic. But I do agree with you. that it does take patience, and it takes humility too. So when someone tells me, if someone was to tell me, I do not believe you are a woman, I feel like it really takes an insecure person to be offended by that to the point of being very emotive. But I do understand where it comes from. Sometimes I do understand where the offense comes from.
Yeah.
But I think having respect and this mutual agreement that, hey, we're both living in this society that is not easy to live in. I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, I like do I think that like trans women deserve to get treated the same way, at least socially, as like biological women. That's just like yeah, like why not, you know? But like I do think that it's important to like acknowledge that there are differences between trans women and biological born women. You know what I mean? And like those differences aren't necessarily bad at all, but it's just like, you know, there are certain differences that we need to account in, as we were saying, in very many different ways. Like this whole conversation like sparks into like, I mean, not sparks, sorry, English isn't my first language. It like branches into like a lot of different conversations, right? The one that I'm most like uh more experienced in is sports, which is why I was speaking about it earlier. But like, yeah, like I think that like, yeah, socially, trans women deserve to get treated the same as like any other woman, I think.
So
Nice to hear from you guys.
I want to talk about what she said and what Norfolk said. So Rave, when you were talking about like there's certain questions that certain people can't answer, I think that's one thing that should be recognized within the trans community. So this is the most hate that I see coming for the trans community is when trans individuals talk about using tampons or whatever. And I've seen the comments down here. Those comments can't be answered of why certain individuals think it's okay to pseudo fake a period or what have you, whatever words you want to use, because these individuals right here, to my knowledge, haven't done that. And so I agree with the sentiment of like, you can't, there's certain questions that can't be answered because these aren't the people that did those actions or portrayed themselves in a certain light. On that same sense though, they get lumped into a fucking category and they get the same hate. And so it's like you got to differentiate. If you don't like a certain content creator on this app, and I know we've all seen the videos because we're all on TikTok, if you don't like a certain way a content creator has handled themselves, that should be their problem, not the entire community. That's like earlier. Race should never be an issue. We're all
That shit went
we're all
bro.
human beings. We're all Americans, to my knowledge. Like we're all here. We're all trying to, in a sense, love one another and get to know like how each other's tickers work and how we think. And so, why are we jumping to conclusions and just automatically excluding people? Like it baffles me that we're so fucking divided over nothing, in my opinion. Like I don't know any of y'all, and I have no hate for any of y'all, and that's how it should be. That's how it should be.
Absolutely, and I think it just comes down to that.
I joined her live, and she added me. She didn't have to. She didn't have to like what I had to say, but she added me, and now we're mutuals on this app, and now I'm going to continue to come these lives and try and understand where y'all are coming from because that's not who I am. I don't get this realm. So I'm trying to understand like what's going on. Also, it's my birthday. I'm chugging some wine, so y'all just love on me for a little bit.
Happy birthday! Oh, we have to sing. Is that?
Also, Texan,
enemy securing Charlie.
Texan, I just realized you're in Houston. I'm in the Heights.
Secure Bravo.
Okay, north of Houston. I'm out on 6 acres in the country.
Oh, okay. You were real
Yeah.
Texan. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm in Colorado. I'm above y'all.
No, but I want this is a way better panel than last time. When I ask questions, it's when people watch my content, I am a dick. I'm an asshole. I come across as like I don't give a fuck, and it's only because I usually only interact with people who have been hostile first. So when I ask questions in these lives, I genuinely want to know. Like, I'm not being honest.
Yeah, same, bro.
Like, I really
Securing
want to
Bravo.
know. I want to know how, like, why do y'all think the way you think? And I don't mean that derogatory. Like, and this goes for anything, it can
Bravo
be politics
secure.
or whatever. I genuinely want to know, like, what makes, why have you gotten to where you're at now, and how can we change the perception, and how can we stop the fucking hate on this app? Because there's so much hate on this fucking app. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, for sure,
I
bro. And
completely
that, and
agree
that's
For,
with
for
We're
that.
losing
everybody,
Bravo.
for everybody.
you know?
I'm gonna throw
Enemy
that out
taking
there.
Charlie.
Everybody hates everybody in this app, and I'm tired of it.
And well,
Well,
I
a
think,
lot of that.
oh, go ahead, Black.
I was just going to add that I think that a lot of that comes from lack of
We
experience.
control 2 objectives.
Mainly, you know, like me, for instance, I was always taught since a child not to judge
Enemy taking
anyone.
Bravo.
You know, everyone is the way they are for a reason.
The enemy took Bravo.
You know, I feel that it's up to getting to, like you said, getting to understand.
We're taking
And
Bravo.
a lot of people,
Our UAV is
they
orbiting the area.
reply,
We're losing Charlie.
well, the right way to say it, I guess, would be, they listen to respond instead of listening to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a new thing for like. I imagine that like for I don't know for like Texan and
The
Flag, but
enemy
it's
has
like a new
captured
thing
2
for me.
objectives.
That's why I wanna like find out about it. Just I want to be respectful, but it's like yeah.
And also, I think a lot of
Hostile VSOL in the
people
area.
in the trans community, and this is just again my perception, because y'all have been very respectful tonight. I've seen
Hostile
multiple trans
cluster
people
mine deployed.
in this live on different panels. I think a lot of people in the trans community, when I go back to saying like the loudest voices are usually the most out there, they make a mockery.
Enemy
It
UAV
makes a
overhead.
mockery of what y'all are
Requesting
actually
recon at this
trying to prove or go through, or
It
just
hurts
be
the acquisition.
understood. It takes away from the actual message. I think that's another part of the fucking problem.
And well,
Securing
I think
Alpha.
that as human beings, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. I think as human beings, there are people in every possible category,
Enemy
definition
UAV
of people
active.
that you can think of that make
Enemies deployed a
whatever
counter
group they
UAV.
belong to or are associated with look bad. That's just people,
We're taking
right?
Alpha.
Like, you can pick any single category of human, no matter what the topic of discussion is, and there are people in that group that make that group of people look bad in
Securing
general.
objective
And I think
Alpha.
it's just, it
Enemies
depends on
taking
kind of what the
Charlie.
hot topic is at the time, that you pull out the worst of a group. I mean, you can do that with anybody. It's not difficult to do, but like Texan was saying, it comes down
Gaining
to
ground.
that
Push 'em
individual
back.
person
Hostile
versus
UAV in the area.
whatever group
Hostile
they belong
Overwatch
to as
Helo
a
in the
whole.
area. Enemy securing Charlie.
Like, people suck, you know,
Securing
like
objective
Correct,
there's gonna be
Bravo.
but
crappy people in any category, but
and I would say this, I don't want to derail the conversation. I don't want to go to a different aspect, but you will never see a hashtag all trans people are bad, but you always see all cops are bad. So when we want to
Securing
have
Alpha.
actual conversations and we want to talk about generalizations, it only happens in
activated.
certain
We're losing
demographics or
Charlie.
certain groups.
it's
Alpha
what's a hot
secure.
issue at the moment. It's what's getting under people's skin at
It's
the
what
moment, and then
it's what
people
makes people mad.
look
We're
for
losing
the
Alpha.
worst. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what
The
it
enemy
is.
took
And so if
Charlie.
somebody
I agree.
is already in a mindset of, no, for whatever
We've
reason,
lost
my
all
beliefs,
objectives.
my culture, my society, whatever it
Taking
is, I have a problem with trans people, you're going to be focused on, one, the things surrounding you are probably focused on the most negative examples that you can get to, you know, but you
Yeah.
can do that with literally anybody. So
Bravo.
it's not like you have some hot, people act like they have this hot ticket of, oh no, I can prove that like trans people are bad. It's the same thing as like, I can prove, insert name of group
Objective
here
Bravo secure.
that you want to not like. You can do that with anybody. But the point is to
Securing
push that
objective
aside
Charlie.
and actually look at the big picture and have these conversations. Talk to people that don't agree with you. If you only ever speak to people that agree with you and think the same way as you your entire life, you will
taking
never
Alpha.
grow. You will never
Enemy
learn. You will
UAV
never get to
overhead.
be a wholer human being than you came into this
We
world as.
control
And it's as
Alpha.
simple as that.
Yeah, that's facts. And you have to be respectful, you know.
I have noticed though that I have noticed that on social media, like these hot topics that are being debated, and there's a lot of like hostility. I
We're
have
taking Charlie.
noticed that they come at the heel of
We're
what is
losing
happening in the
Bravo.
political circles.
We
So
control
it's
all
like
objectives.
what are politicians arguing
Enemy
about? We'll all of a
active.
sudden see that out in
Objective
the
Bravo
social,
is
in social
compromised.
media outlets.
Enemies taking
Yeah.
Where
Alpha.
like,
Setting mine.
but I so for
The
example,
enemy took Alpha.
this
Hostile
war
UAV in the
between
area.
this this I'm just gonna say this war between trans women and non-trans women. I didn't even see that come into play until I got on TikTok. Because in my personal life, there's nothing but mutual respect with non-trans women in my life, and I have learned so much from them. So I'm like, why all of a
taking
sudden
Charlie.
is this discussion
Securing
being
objective Alpha.
had?
The
You
enemy
know,
holds 2
but
objectives.
I do
The enemy
see,
captured all objectives.
but that's
Fight
not to say
objective
that
Alpha
there's
secure.
not feelings that are connected to this topic, because all of us, you know, obviously, you know, there's some hostility in some parts of communities and things like that.
So I'm sorry to speak in, guys.
We're taking
I'm
Bravo.
gonna give you guys 10 more minutes, and I'm gonna ask for my next panel and my last panel of the night.
Securing objective
I'm
Bravo.
going to bed after this.
Oh yeah, me too.
Everyone
For real. Yeah,
tap
it's
your
late as
screens
hell.
and give some
Bravo.
likes to our wonderful host and their
Enemy
time and
securing
energy
Alpha.
commitment to these conversations happening today, please.
Enemy
So
securing
someone asked me
Bravo.
why I was using non-trans
losing Alpha.
as a
Enemy
descriptor.
UAV overhead.
Because I'm still I like to read the room when I enter.
Objective Alpha
I don't
compromised.
know
Enemy taking
if
Bravo.
someone is going to get offended by the use of cis.
Securing Alpha.
And even though I have a
Friendly
different
UAV on station.
relationship with the word, I don't want to just assume that when people say woman, that they're
Securing
actually saying
objective
cis
Alpha.
woman, but I didn't want to use the term if it was offensive.
Oh, I don't want to speak for everyone, but like,
Alpha
I'm
secure.
good with it. Like, yeah.
The enemy's advanced.
It seems like there
Sounds
were
like
a
me.
lot of comments kind of for a while now where some people are very bothered by that. And it seems like that's where Karina's kind of coming from. Is some people are like, well, I'm insulted by this. You know,
Yeah.
it's
So
a part of listening and trying to understand and respond to what people are putting out there.
And so I think,
Charlie.
yeah, go ahead.
Someone said around five.
Mission
around
failed.
5
Return to
o'clock,
base.
this afternoon. That it is just an adjective. It's literally just an adjective. Just like trans is an adjective. It's the descriptor word. So I want to bring that up to you guys to discuss.
I mean, the only thing else, I'm not a woman, and I brought this up earlier, and I've spoken to a lot of my female friends, so and chat's probably going to get mad that I'm speaking for them, but their only complaint, and this is across the board, every single, you know, biologically woman that's been born that way and continues to stay that way, their only complaint with that word is that they've been raised and they've been called a woman from, you know, obviously after adolescence, they've been called a woman from point A to point B, basically. And now they feel like that term cis is degrading the fact that they're a woman.
I see that point, and this is just me personally. It doesn't, that phenomenon that you just described does not bother me one bit. So if someone were to say, I don't like to be called cis, I will honor that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I guess in my profession, because I work in the health profession, I know I understand cis to be a like medical term. So that's why I use it in my practice. But other than that, I don't really.
I think it's the same as like you hear it too, like cis white males, and it's like, well, just call me a white male. Just call me a white male. Like,
yeah.
Here's my point. Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because I think most times when that word is used, it's used in a derogatory manner, or it's used in a sense of like, I'm trying to one up you or prove a point.
For real, or like
I
trying
think
to
that's
make you
the
seem
problem.
bad, you know?
Yeah.
Because like, I mean,
yeah.
Also,
I
like,
think it wraps back around to that social media aspect and the way that we interact with each other now. And there is so much negativity. And it is something that I know I've personally seen used as an insult, you know, and so many things can be used as an insult, but when you get to something where people are using it offensively or intending it offensively, it becomes more and more of an issue to people where they're not seeing it in a positive light or seeing it as just a descriptor. It's, you know, it's not that deep. It's
Word, yeah.
but when it's used that way, then it becomes insulting, or people associate it with, well, I've seen all these things on social media where, you know, it seemed like someone was insulting someone for being cis or for being straight, and so they associate that with them, and that, you know, perception is reality in a lot of ways. And so for someone, if all they're seeing and all they're perceiving is that their experience with cis is as an insult or as some kind of a jab for being straight, they're going to associate that as a negative thing for them, versus someone who's never experienced that. They may not have a problem with it, or they have a different relationship with the word. And it's just a matter of hearing people and respecting people.
Yeah.
Facts.
So
yeah.
my some of my trans like sisters would probably after the live that I told y'all today that I was a part of with the 3, you know, non-trans women, I got some flack for it, not from the cis community but from the trans community, because they felt like I wasn't defending myself, and I had to make it clear that I didn't enter the live to debate. I entered the live to have a cordial conversation about this social thing that we're experiencing, right? But I really do. I agree with you, Rafe. I agree with you. It depends on how we take things and how we.
Karina, that happens on both sides though. If you don't take a hard stance on certain things, you will get shit on by everybody.
Yeah.
And that's
I've
again
seen that quite a
problem.
bit.
The problem that
I've
we have
seen-
now is if you don't take a hard stance and you don't defend something to the death, even if you don't believe in it, you will get shit on by everybody. And it's like, it's baffling. Like, why do we have to fucking put our toes in the sand and dig in deep and just say, oh, I know I'm wrong, but this is what I believe? No, like, opinions are ever changing, ideas are ever changing, facts are, you know, ever changing, not as much as opinions and other things, but like,
Yeah.
why can't we not just have conversations? Like, that's the problem. And what you just said, that doesn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me that the only community that you identify with was like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Why didn't you do this? It happens every day. It happens every day.
And the women that were part of the live literally messaged me outside of TikTok to actually extend an olive branch, and they said, "We support you and we walk with you." And I'm just like, it brought me to tears, because it's not for me to be able to speak to total strangers online and to come to some agreement about humanity. That's beautiful, you know. And so I just think it's, I don't know. I really, I feel really blessed to be a part of this panel today, because it gives me hope. It gives me hope about society. And then just one last thing for you in the comments, for people in the comments you know, you keep mentioning the cis term and how that bothers you, right? Trans women, right? I would say that most trans people completely recognize that we are not, in quotes, the biological version that you are. That's why we decide to do things like transition. So there's not like this where, you know, there's not this like, we're not trying to play tricks on anyone. Does that make sense? We're just trying to use, quite frankly, we're just trying to learn how to use language that, and I'm gonna use cis as just the term, but cis people and cis scientists and socialists invented, right? Like cis and trans were not. I know people think that they were invented socially, but they're not. But I see why people think that.
And I did just want to clarify. I apologize. I know Victoria in the comments had pointed out I did misspeak. And I'm aware that cis does not equal straight, and I apologize. I clearly misspoke in part of what I was saying. So I was not trying to correlate that that's the definition of it. So I'm sorry for that. But I think a lot of what you're saying, Texas, like it comes down to like it kind of an ego death, if you will. Like, as people, as human beings, we have a really hard time with feeling like we're wrong. And we get into such a point of like, well, if you don't agree with me, like, either I'm wrong or you're wrong. So who's it going to be? And I think stepping away from that and getting to a place of understanding, there's a bit of ego death involved in that. And that's really hard for people as people. And so it's easier to just kind of stand on your soapbox and, you know, die on this hill than to admit that even some part of maybe what you were thinking may have been incorrect because you're better informed now. It's difficult to get to that point because as human beings, we fight against that because we don't like to feel like we're wrong.
Yep.
I couldn't have said that any better.
I think Karina said it best. That you're not trying to act like you were born that way. And I think that's the misnomer that a lot of females and males who don't obviously know what's going on, that's the problem, is that they think that you are putting on a disguise. Does that make sense?
That's what it feels like to me, at least. Yeah, sometimes.
I think that's the misconception, the misnomer that and I'm just gonna say we. I'm gonna say we. You know, obviously, everyone who thinks that way. The majority of the people who don't understand what's going on think that way, and I think this is the type of conversation and the type of just explaining yourself. And I hate to even say that because you shouldn't have to, but this is such a controversial topic. So you said it perfectly. Like it is what it is. I like the way you put it. I like the way like I guess it's finally starting to click in my head. I still might not understand it, but like I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
But you're trying, and that means so much. And I agree, so
but again,
incredibly
and
well said.
I may never get there, but that doesn't mean I dislike the person. Like
I was actually gonna say whether you get there or not, that's not the end goal. I think you've already reached the goal of being able to live civilly in the same society. And I can tell you, as a trans woman, my goal in life is is literally the last thing from my mind is to replace women, right? My goal in life is to literally just be happy.
You're just existing. You're living. You're doing what makes you happy.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but we were definitely picked at random. You know, we were put on here at random. And to see how this conversation has gone, it's amazing. You know, I got much love and respect for everyone here, especially the host. You know, the host has been great. You know,
Absolutely.
big shout out to her. This whole time I've been tapping the screen to get it to 10K for her. You know, but my final point is this: you don't see that very often. You know, it's a rarity, and it's good to see that. You know, and the fact that it saddens me that what Karina was saying, that she was attacked by members of her own community for being non-biased, for coming from a genuine position to come to a consensus where everyone can be able to have a conversation like this one. And the fact that it's so difficult to have a conversation because, like she said, everybody wants to die on their hill, and that's it. They're just going to die on their hill. There's no. And so, and again, like I said earlier, a lot of that has to do with the younger generation just being very hype, very, hyper, you have to be right, and I'm right, and it's my way, and I'm guilty of this. I'll tell you right now, I'm a very hard-headed person. I really believe in objective reality and common sense and facts, but at the same time, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to coexist with everyone. You know what I mean? I think that that's something very important. I think that, like I said earlier, we're all human. We all deserve to be here.
Real.
Well said.
That's real. That's love.
And even if you can't even if you can't coexist, just fucking ignore them.
Right.
Like, how hard is that?
For real, bro. Just
Dude, my block list is so long in this app because I'm just like, I don't want to tolerate your bullshit. I just don't like. I don't even have like. I don't even want to like. It doesn't matter. I just don't. I don't want to see like. How hard is it for you to just ignore people? It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. You exude more effort in being a
All
dickhead to
Saber,
people
plant a charge on
than
the target
anything
and
else.
level it.
Just don't put energy into it.
Yeah.
That part.
Live
Secure
and
the
let
bomb.
live. Why are you putting energy into something you hate so much?
That
It's like
part
people
right
that cyberstalk people that they quote unquote can't stand. Then stop looking at them. Like,
But guys, I'm gonna get
okay,
up out of
bye.
here. I know the host
Well-
definitely is tired and has to get up in the morning.
Before you get off, I'm gonna leave you guys with a story about myself. So I worked for a large company. I'm not gonna say what company, but when I worked there, I went into the restroom, right?
Cold-blooded
Into the women's
online.
restroom, right? And a mother was there with her child, and she called
1
the
minute
father on the phone who was waiting outside. The father came in, yanked me out by my ponytail, brought me to my manager, and got me fired, right? And then that night I got out of my car.
We took a
And
victory
the
there.
father's
Prepare
there.
to repeat it.
He takes me and beats me up, and breaks my arm. So my question is, why can't we all just love? Why can't we all just love
Search and destroy.
love one another? Love one another.
All
And
Saber,
I'm gonna go
detonate
with
the
that
target to
comment.
win.
And I hope you
Bomb
guys
secure.
take that and really bring it to not even just trans people, straight people, gay people, lesbians. Bring that aspect to just love one another. Please love one another. Because I'm honestly surprised that the thing is, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm having better conversations than I was having at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
We're all sleep deprived, you think that's what. And someone's drinking, and Texan is drinking wine, so he's
Hey,
I gotta
talk for
finish.
y'all, bro. I'm
Oh, I
out
do.
here. I'm out here on Hogwarts Legacy,
Addison,
learning
you
new
want-
spells.
you want
Y'all
real
already know
answer?
what's good up in this bitch.
You want a real answer, Addison, from me? I'm not drunk yet, but I'm gonna say this. I come from a Republican leaning. I consider myself a true conservative, and I don't align myself with any
minute.
politician ever. I think the government's corrupt. That being said, a lot of the people that I associate with come from the understanding of we want to protect children. I think the problem comes into play where we think that every
We secured the
transgender
bomb.
person
Planting bomb at
who
Alpha.
goes into a bathroom that they're not
Saber,
biologically
stand by to detonate.
supposed to, and I'm using the air quotes, supposed to be in, is trying to do nefarious shit. So
When they're
it,
just
it's
the restaurant.
down to a comprehension and an understanding of, and this is a fucking tricky subject. This is where like there's no right or wrong answer, because there are people that walk into the bathroom and do fucked up shit, and 99% don't. So
Our
I
bomb
don't-
is defused.
I would never
We
wish
lost
that
that round.
upon
Ready up for the
anybody.
next one.
See, and
But I think the problem is that there's such a
Switching sides.
fear in certain people's minds in this country
Search
that
and destroy.
things are going to happen in the bathroom with their child. So that
Saber
being
one.
said,
Set
if
security
you
on the
fucking
objective.
fear your
Ghost
child going into a
online.
bathroom, walk the fuck in there with them.
For
It's that simple.
real, protect your
It's
fucking
that
kids, bro.
Simple.
People fear what they don't understand.
You have 4 children. One has to go to the bathroom. You walk all 4 of their happy asses in there, and you go
Yep.
into the bathroom. And you go into the bathroom that you yourself. So if I'm a male, I'm taking them into the male's bathroom. If you're a female, you take them. We're dumbing down, but we're also making shit so complicated when we don't need to. I think that's the problem.
It's
So
not
earlier-
complicated. It really isn't complicated at all.
And I'm sorry that
People
like really
I
that's
just
that.
wanted to quickly
fucked up.
address what the host was mentioning, that she was assaulted and got her arm broken. That's sick.
1 minute
Yeah.
left.
See, and so
I'll tell you
just,
one thing.
This
I'll tell
round
you
is
one
on.
thing.
Ready up for the next
I
one.
come from one of the worst neighborhoods. I came from Puerto Rico when I was 4 years old to an all-black neighborhood. I didn't know any
Search
English.
and destroy.
I was 7 years old the first time I got a gun put to my
All
head.
Saber, defend the objectives.
You know, it's just sick people are out there. Sick people are out there. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I know we're gonna run out of time here, host, but I'm really sorry that you experienced that. And just to give everyone else like a little bit more of depth to the conversation, one of the things that we haven't really talked about right now, but I know our host is gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's that one of the things that we do share in common with women that are not trans is this intense pressure to be high on the beauty hierarchy, that trans women, for example, that quote unquote pass, do not necessarily they don't get kicked out of restrooms. It's a privilege that some trans women have, right? Whereas
Final minute.
our host, who was just called out, I'm sure it was based on what you look like, host, and I know you know what I'm talking about. It's a privilege that she does not get to enjoy, that we don't really talk about that kind of stuff in the public circle, right? Because trans women, it's like when we do talk about these things, it's seen as it's not important. It's like, okay, all trans women should not belong in the restroom, right?
30 seconds
But there's
remain.
so much nuance to it, and the reason why I tell you this, why I'm talking about this,
We
is
took a
to
victory
kind of
there.
just
Prepare
describe
to
more the
repeat it.
humanity of what it means to be trans in this world, with that maybe, you know, there's these immense pressures that really affect us, right? So just wanted to throw that out there.
Search and
And host, I'm
destroy.
sorry you went through that.
Yeah, that's
I'm so
horrible.
sorry.
That's
All
something that
Saber,
I think that's
secure
something
a
that trans
perimeter around
community
the
should talk about.
objectives.
And I say the trans community because I'm not trans. I can't
Our UAV
speak
is orbiting
on.
the area.
I agree, and it's also our own community that is putting pressures. Yeah, I do agree with that.
I think I would say there's stigmas within any society, and there's hierarchies, and I get completely what you're saying. I get completely. It wouldn't have happened if there was different circumstances for Addison. I get that.
And then the question is, well, who's in charge of that beauty hierarchy? Right. So
The people who have the loudest voice in whatever community that is. It
Also,
this voices project the most and have the most power.
Yeah.
Whether
Sorry,
it's right or wrong, right?
yeah, sorry if like I don't fucking
1
know
minute
like
left.
what like all of the lingo means. But like, what do you mean by like passing? Is that like
passing is, yeah.
I'm not
That's
trying to
what
be like
No,
disrespectful.
not at all. No, you ask me all the questions you want. Passing is a term that we use for a trans person, basically going stealth. Like if a trans woman is passing, that means that you can't really tell that they're trans.
Oh,
So
Final
in
30 seconds.
in the trans community, it's almost like you have to be. There's like this unsaid goal, even though people like me and Mara, our host, probably
We took a
we
loss
don't
there.
really
Let's not repeat
subscribe.
it.
I mean, I'm assuming Mara. I'm speaking for you. I'm sorry, Mara, if it's not true. We don't really. I feel the pressure of it, but I don't really believe that.
Switching sides.
I have to be 100% passing to earn
Search and
respect,
destroy.
but I do see that in society it plays a role.
Saber 1.
It sucks,
Set a
but it's
charge
a
on the
reality.
target and detonate it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that.
You secured the bomb.
Well, thank you guys. I'm bringing my last panel for the night. Those who want to come on in, but I hope you guys have an amazing night. Oh, who would love to have online?
Addison, would you mind if I made one more short comment before texting you?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, because this conversation has been amazing, so incredibly, and I think it's so awesome. I'm all about spreading love, and I know it's your birthday, so anyone else wants to join me. I'm gonna sing Pepsi Happy Birthday real quick.
Yay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Texan. Happy birthday to you.
We lost that round. Ready up for the
Hey,
next one.
you had nice
Beautiful
voice, to
voice.
be honest. That
Oh,
was
thank
nice.
you.
Texan,
Made
hit
my
me up.
arms-
I'm a
Hit me
singer.
up,
Check out my
Texan.
page. Love you
arms
guys.
stand up.
Okay, well,
I just
guys
followed
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Addison.
you.
Thank
Thank
All
you.
right, guys. You guys have a good night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was
search and
nice.
destroy.
Hey, don't let me
Oh.
catch no fucking Hufflepuff running my dormitory, mom.
I want to
Saber.
say one last thing.
Detonate the
I
target
think
to
that
win.
I think that there should be some
You've
dis.
secured the
I
device.
don't use that word, so don't fucking hate me in the comments. But I think there should be some straight women who come in that have their point of view, because there's a lot of people in the comments talking about how they're not respected, and I would like to see how they convey why they're not respected. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we're.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
All
I'll
right.
see you guys later. Bye.
Have a good night.
Come on
Don't
in
let me
tomorrow,
catch no
too, if you
fucking
wanna come in.
Hufflepuff in my dormitory. I'ma fucking kill you.
You fucking Hufflepuff.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
I'll be in the comments.
Okay. So, like I said, we had some great conversations today. I would like to have one more conversation with 5 new people. If you could come on in and join the conversation.
Final minute.
And the conversation is are trans women. So definitely come on in and give your input. Let's see if we get anybody.
We
But
took
a lot of
loss
people,
there.
so
Let's not repeat
most
it.
people in here are probably following me now. We got someone. Okay, cool. Perfect. One person in. Oh, did that person go out? Oopsies. Request that again. I missed that invite. Come on back in.
Search
Sorry.
and destroy. All Saber, plant a charge on the target and level it.
I'm gonna get you back in. Hold on.
You've got the bomb.
I did see your invite.
Hostile UAV in the area.
I mean the. Let me see if I can get you back in. Welcome in. Thanks for joining.
Not much more.
Give me 1 second to get some more people in.
Hello. Go much.
Hold on 1 second. I'm not doing match today, unfortunately. So I'm inviting people in to talk about this topic that I have up on the screen.
1 minute left.
That
Mission compromised. We've
well, like
been
I said,
defeated.
those who want to come live and talk about the topic, I'm willing to have you in. And like I said, if there are those who can't join, follow them. Get them supporters. So I can see there's a lot of people who are very, very close to getting that. Go ahead and follow them. I'm also going to invite a few people, so if you haven't talked yet, if you want to come in, accept my invite. Get people in here. Wow, my last group was amazing and talking very loud. Looks like it looks like everybody else is tired right now.
Free for all.
I agree, Raven. I agree. Everybody's like, but no. Let's see if we can get someone in here. If not, I will be going off. If no one comes in the next 15 minutes or so, I will be going offline because text him back. Come on back.
Fuck it, let's go.
Hey, if those
Let me just ask you questions. How about that?
yeah, that works.
Okay, so do you get offended when the pronouns that you want to be called by aren't used?
If they're doing it in an offensive way, then absolutely. If they're doing something they don't know them, then no.
Okay. Because my philosophy is that I'm still on the fence about using pronouns, so I'd rather just call the person by the name that they want to be called.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I'm not disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. Very valid.
Like, you're going to be Addison. I'm not going to call you he, she, they, them, it, purple, square, yellow, whatever. I'm going to call you by your name. That way I'm not being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got someone else coming in.
I saw some comments earlier about that, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah. No. Ari, welcome back. Thank you back for
Cold-blooded
joining.
activated.
I swear, I couldn't sleep, so I finally decided to come back. I've been like mass cleaning again. I'm like, I need to stop. This is day 4.
Oh my gosh, I agree. I've been live for almost 10 hours now. I kind of enjoy it.
I know that's hypocritical coming from me, but
No, this will be my last my last panel. If you get 5 people join in.
Do you go live like this long every night?
I don't sleep. I am a very bad sleeper, so
You're
yeah.
fucking wild. Jesus Christ. That's fine. It's my birthday. I'm hanging out with y'all. I'm glad you came across my For You page randomly, and I was like, man, I don't know if I should join this shit because this is wild. This is wild because the conversation I was watching was like, man, I shouldn't join this. And then I sent my request and I watched for about 20 minutes and I was like, nah, I got some good points. And everyone didn't hate me, so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll come back. Like, I'm just trying to learn shit. Like, that's what everyone should be doing.
oh yeah. So I disappeared around 2:40. It is now 4:22 for me. What did I miss? Were we just continuing to go in circles?
Oh, baby girl, you missed a lot. You missed a lot.
I swear, whenever you were on the panel, I saw you getting so frustrated because, like, I literally saw you. Okay, I'm gonna turn on my camera, but I'm literally like a fucking mess right now. But I kept seeing you do this number.
Who, me?
Private online.
I was like, please let the man talk.
Well, you know, this is my first live. It's not my last live. I've been in a multitude of lives with a bunch of people, and I know that people want to fucking speak. They're just gonna speak, and they're gonna ramble. They're gonna say whatever they want to say. I believe in the First Amendment. Say whatever you want to say, regardless if I don't even agree with it. But there was a lot to take in that first live that I encountered, and The last live was even better. I think all of us were coming to a common understanding of like, hey, this is where we should be. This is where we're at. That first live was fucking bonkers.
Oh my god, was this the live that Venti was in?
Yes.
I decoded what she was trying to say whenever she was like, so if I call my friend the N-word and then like continued rambling on with like hot Cheeto girl talk, I swear to God, she was talking about language. She wasn't talking about equality in any sense. She was just saying the fact that you shouldn't say certain things to some of your friends that you
So
should
that was
say
my
to other
question.
friends.
And I literally asked her the question. I said, what are you trying to imply? Like, what? I'm not trying to be a dick. Just tell me what you're fucking saying, because I don't understand it. And it just it spiraled.
It's like, English, do you speak it?
It wasn't even that. And I mean, if she's watching, I mean, no disrespect, obviously, but like, I asked the question.
I'm
I
not
asked the question.
disrespecting.
Like,
It's
tell,
just she
what,
had
tell
a
me what we're
very
talking
odd way
about.
of articulating, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd like to ask this question: what do you guys think of my lives and the and the idea behind it?
Sender 3-1 deployed
For now, being
I think it's a great platform to give people the space to have conversations that need to be had and that they may not have an opportunity to participate in otherwise in their everyday life.
Yeah, don't read the comments.
Enemy UAV active.
I'll tell you this right now. Like
it's dangerous waters out there.
I'm close to 20,000 followers. I know for a fact not to read any of my comments when I go live. It doesn't matter. You're gonna have a full spectrum of people that disagree, agree. They're gonna say the most vile shit ever. I would say this panel or the way that you're running things is very good. Be protective of who you bring in. I would say that because they can get you shut down real quick. I'm on an account warning, so like my account's pretty close to like being permanently banned forever, just because I speak about controversial shit, which is fine. I don't care. It is what it is. No, I'm giving you advice. Like I wouldn't want you to get banned for trying to open up a platform and have a civil conversation. Because I know that these are very controversial subjects that you're talking about, or that you're allowing people on your platform to discuss. So just be careful. Maybe if you do gain a very decent following, have moderators in your comments. That would be my only suggestion.
Yeah. By the way,
I gotta finish this. So.
Yeah. Good luck.
Fuck.
I think two of your moderators actually know.
Okay, I didn't know if you did or not. I was just putting that out there.
No, you know.
How do you? Because I didn't hear from you. How do you feel about using the word cis?
So, the way that I put it is, it's like I said earlier. It's an adjective. It's actually a biological name. It was made from biology, from scientists, and that's and that's from me learning from these lives too. Like other people, I actually did research on it, and it literally says it in almost every research paper what the person identifies. Okay. You can find.
Yes. And then to delve further on cis, just for people that like to think it is a made-up word, cis is a Latin prefix, and let's remember that Latin has the Latin language has been around for easily over 200 years. I don't know the exact number, but it's easily over 200. And cis is basically a prefix that means alignment to or in accordance to. So whenever you're saying you're a cis man, that basically means that you're aligning to your assigned sex at birth.
Correct, but and it's what we talked about while you were gone, is that word hasn't been used in our
30 seconds
vernacular
remain.
in America for a long time. And
Yes.
so we got to the understanding of people do not like hearing that word because they've just heard, oh, you're a man or you're a woman for so long.
Exactly.
So trying to incorporate that
seconds
word,
remaining.
and most times when that word is used, it's used in a very derogatory
All
term.
Saber, mission accomplished.
That's the problem. So the word in of itself is not the issue. It's the way that it's used most times.
It's the perception of the word
And
and
we were talking about
people's
after
experience
you
of
were
it.
gone, Lori.
Ari. I
Ari,
don't know
sorry.
why, but people read that girl and then they put the L with Ari and then it ends up being Lori in
Even with
every
my
single
glasses,
live
I'm
ever.
blind as
And I'm
fuck.
like,
So
what
thank
the
you.
fuck? It's okay. I'm dyslexic too, so.
No, I think it's one of those things that, again, it just comes down to understanding. And I think that, like Hexam was saying, so many people haven't heard that prefix for the majority of their lives. It's a new word to them in a sense, that then whatever their understanding or their opinion of that is what they've had it associated with. And for a lot of people, they've seen it associated as being used as a jab or an insult to be identified as cis. And so it has a negative connotation to them and therefore is taken as insulting to them, and they don't like being identified in that way. You know, and you're absolutely right. You know, it has Latin roots. I mean, historically, cis, it literally means on the side of, or the side nearer to the speaker. You know, historically, cisalpine would mean, you know, on the side nearer to Rome. So it's something that's been around, but it's just the way it's being used now is new to people, and there is an overall negative perception for a lot of people that would fall into that identification because they're seeing it as something negative or an insult, or like something demeaning to them for being identified that way.
Absolutely. I completely understand that. Let's see here. The Karina would like to come, or Karina, I believe that's how you say it, would like to come back onto the panel there.
Yeah, request back in.
Let me ask one more question, Asin.
Yeah.
Can I ask how old you are?
I am 26 years old.
Okay.
Almost 27, and I'm going for my special education major at college.
And at what age did you realize that you were not in the body that you wanted to be in, and that you were gonna transition or be transgender?
So, when I knew what it was, and when I felt it was around age 6 or 7, but when my parents noticed it, it was around 3 or 4 when I started playing with Barbie dolls, dressing up, stuff like that. I want to dress in feminine clothes, and because of like I definitely grew up poor, and we just were not able to go forward at that time until I got a job, working for Walmart, which is one of the worst corporations ever, may I say, but
Hey, King Bully, if you don't have nice shit to say, get out of here. Like, I'm not tolerating that shit.
Got someone coming in.
I'm not doing that. Like, come on, be nice in the comments. You don't have to be accepting. If you don't like what we're talking about, fucking leave the chat. I'm not gonna do that shit. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Addison.
No, you're good. Don't worry. And I feel like that's about when I started to really get to the point of realizing that I'm not male. I don't assign with male, and that's okay. But welcome into our new person coming in. How are you doing today?
Quickly,
Hi, it's Boo.
I'm sorry if I did that. Yeah, because I feel like maybe I said something that I wasn't supposed to. Sorry.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Can I jump in here for a minute?
Yeah.
Just to make a comment, when the person that was describing the word said it has Latin roots, it literally means this. Because first, number one, you don't get to tell me what offends me. you don't get to decide for me what I consider a slur. You can say it's not a slur all you want to, but that would be the same thing as a redneck saying the ninja word is not offensive and not a slur. But we know it is. And cis may indeed have Latin roots, but the word Negro means black. It has Latin roots. So just because the word has roots or whatever, and you don't think it's a slur and you have decided I need to be defined by that word, you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that.
Well, I think
It doesn't work that way.
respectfully that's exactly the point we were making, was that it's not up to someone else to decide what is offensive, and that it's understandable that there are a great many people that do not like being referred to in that way because it is offensive to them, because they consider it a slur, and that needs to be respected. That was the point that was being made, that yes, this
Okay, I'm
isn't a
sorry.
word that was
I'm
made for that point,
And
but that
I'm
we
sorry
can
okay. I'm sorry. I
understand.
misunderstood. I thought this was. I
Yeah,
thought
I'm
I heard
sorry.
somebody
I'm not saying
supporting.
that I'm like forcing that identity on you guys. I was just explaining it as an education point for people that might not know.
Yeah. Thank you. So while you're in here, I know that I kind of derailed of the purpose of the live for a minute, but can I get your stance on the topic of our trans women?
What?
Are trans women?
If you take the hormones and have the surgery and live your life, yeah. And to be honest with you, if I was a trans woman, I wouldn't. Why do you say trans woman? Just say woman. If you consider yourself a woman, you are a woman. It's your identity. And somebody else doesn't get to pick your identity for you. So I would never, ever, ever quantify or qualify my personhood. Like I wouldn't say, hi, I'm a postmenopausal woman. That's unnecessary and unneeded. It's very descriptive. But when we start having all these labels and labeling this group is this group is this, that sets you up to be segregated. That is an identifier somebody else puts on you so that you can be lumped into a group of people, and it sets you up for, first of all, somebody's judgment. When you provide them that information, you are inviting their commentary and judgment. And I'm sorry, I'm a different kind of person because I won't do that. I do not, I don't want validation from a stranger by saying I'm a postmenopausal woman. It's just ridiculously unnecessary.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword as well, because there are, I think, a great many people also that it becomes a safety thing too. In some ways, it's kind of hard to define. I'm kind of searching for the words here, but there are some people that are very, very upset by the idea that someone doesn't identify themselves, that they call themselves a woman and they don't identify that, well, you're a trans woman, it adds to that kind of social aspect of, oh, you're being sneaky, you're hiding, it's not that that's right in any kind of a way, but I think that adds into the issue of people identifying a certain way or describing or being very clear. It comes from a lot of different corners as far as why people identify the way that they do, but I think that those are definitely factors.
Yes, and to add to that, we did have a trans woman, I believe, that came on like 80 panels ago, I swear. But basically, or maybe it was a completely different live. I've been hopping like lives for the past like 3 days. But so the way that she had explained it is basically that for some trans women, she was fully transitioned, but she still kind of had that respect level for others. Like she had her bottom surgery. She talked about how if you saw her on the streets, you would just think that she's a biological woman. But, some people still have this ideology where even if you're completely fully transitioned, it can become a safety hazard. And so not only does she do that for the respect factor of saying, hey, I'm a trans woman, I just want to let you know that at one point, like I was this other thing. If you find that unattractive, like please move on because that's not me. But she also explained that it can become a safety issue because even fully transitioned women can still get essayed and unalived just for being a fully transitioned woman who said they were a woman.
Well, first of all, if you are fully transitioned, how would they know? How would anybody know? How would you put yourself in a position for them to examine your surgical scars? And if you don't, I see, I'm confused when you say some people get upset that I might not identify myself. Well, that's on them. It is not my responsibility to manage their offensive level or their triggers. I don't know. Maybe it's the generation you guys like. I consider it oversharing. I mean, when I present myself to somebody, I don't say. I used to be. I'm a post prepubescent female because it's unnecessary, stupid, And yes, I was that once upon a time. So a trans man or trans woman used to be something once upon a time, but it's irrelevant now. That no longer exists in the world. I mean, that is no longer a factor. So why you would even put it out there is confusing to me.
Okay,
Just to make it clear.
I got a question.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
I'm asking questions. Don't get mad at me. So you're a biological female.
I'm sorry, what?
Were you born a female?
Yes, I was.
And like these aren't. I'm not. These aren't gotcha questions. I'm just asking questions. Today's
no, listen. I'm not going to be offended. I'm not. And see, I am of a different generation. So go ahead, because I don't get offended easily.
I think today's standards. I think what you're talking about is something that only happens in my generation or the people that the majority of this chat is involved in, and that's what you're alluding to is like people hiding their gender identity. Which is rare.
No, I don't consider it hiding. I'm not implying that anyone's hiding. I'm just saying that's information that I don't feel necessary to give to any stranger. I don't want to invite, and I don't care about their judgment, and I don't want to, I don't want to deal with country. I'm not talking about hiding it. I'm talking about it's no longer a factor. It's not that you're hiding it; it's just no longer relevant.
But I think for some people it is relevant and they do care, and it becomes a fine line for someone to follow of, am I going to upset someone by identifying that way? Am I going to upset someone by not identifying that way? And that's something that they have to juggle every day in their life. And it can be a safety issue.
If I go on a date with a woman and she has a penis and doesn't disclose that, that's an issue.
Yeah. Well,
vice versa. If I were gay and went on a date with a man and he had a vagina, that'd be an issue. So I get the point of not disclosing to a certain extent, but for this conversation,
if you've gotten to the point of a relationship where genitalia is involved, then yes, disclosure should be on the table. And I understand that it's important to some people because it's a journey, it's a process, and it's like going through a battle and coming out on the other side victorious. So I understand that that's important. But if it's important to them to let people know about their journey by identifying as trans, well, then you don't get to turn around and say, "Oh, I might upset somebody if I identify as trans," because it shouldn't matter. Like I may upset somebody because I choose not to use the word cis. But it's not. I'm not responsible for managing what offends you.
Okay. Can I ask like what?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm asking a general question. What made you join the conversation? Why did you want to join? Like what do you want to talk about? I'm being honest.
I'm gonna be honest. I wanted to join because I see this question: are trans women? Or vice versa, and it's to me, I'm like, why does it matter? If you consider yourself a woman, you're a woman. I don't need you to tell me whether I'm a woman or not. I wanted to join the conversation for liberation. I'm all for anybody wanting to identify as anything, and I'm all for what offends you, offends you. It's subjective, it's personal. I haven't walked in your shoes.
Okay, I
But
think
by the
that's
same,
what everyone wanted to
yeah,
hear. That's what.
okay.
Let's get
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
and that's it. I just
So what's
wanted to say that
So hi,
that
Rita.
Boo
Thank you
Boo?
for being so
yeah.
patient.
You know
Go
what's
ahead. I'm
really,
sorry.
you know what's incredibly interesting to me?
What?
Boo Boo, I'm just assuming what generation you're from. But individuals from older generations have been less stringent on accepting trans people compared to like people in my own age group. I'm 34. So that speaks to your generation that I think is
Well, I'm going to say the exact opposite. When you get to be my age, you realize it doesn't matter.
It
In the
doesn't.
long,
Yo, they don't.
of things,
Yeah,
I
they
don't
don't. They
care.
don't give a
I
fuck
don't care
about
what you do.
anything.
No, I don't care
I
what
don't
you
know
do in your
exactly.
bedroom.
No.
I don't care what you do in your bedroom.
period. Yeah.
Do you want to be defined as a human being by what you do in your bedroom? I don't.
No,
And
no.
people my age really are more accepting because they realize that in life's journey, anyone's life's journey, that is a very
E-
small part, not a huge issue like it appears to be.
When
I think that, so. I
when
mean,
I
but
came
that's your opinion and my opinion. Go ahead.
when I came out to my grandfather who's 80, he had no issue with it at all when I started transit. I'm a trans woman. And his response was, I fought in the Vietnam War. Do you think I give a shit about what you do behind closed doors? And I'm like, that's a
There
really
you go.
solid point. There's a
There you
perspective.
go.
There's also perspective that is really important here. So
Well, it's because we get taught to hate.
Yeah, and it is. And when you're young and a certain generation, everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to be, you know, and it's truly valid to want to be unique and to want to be a unique, special, interesting human being. I get that, but when you reach a certain age, you just want to be left alone. You just,
yeah.
you're like, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I'm living my life, paying my bills, and it's not a mean thing or dismissive thing. It's just you do you.
Yeah.
Boo boo,
And
boo boo. I'm already there.
I
I moved out to 6 acres.
I make no
I
difference.
have good Wi-Fi. I don't like people. This is my only interaction with people. I get you. I don't give a
Yeah.
fuck about what people think. I care about people.
You're and
Do what?
eventually we all reach the same. Eventually, people all reach the same point in life. You pick and choose what are really what the important issues are, and how it's all about how you live your life. What I'm going to allow to influence and factor into my day-to-day existence, and your sexuality, gender, whatever, doesn't factor into me waking up in the morning and brushing my teeth. Do you get that? I mean, I love
Yeah.
this conversation. Once upon a time, look, I didn't even know what cis was till about 3 weeks ago, and I I love being educated. I do. I learn new stuff every day. So and I hope I don't offend anybody. I don't mean to. I'm just kind of blunt, and I may not be
We
using the right
clarified
words.
everything.
Okay. I mean,
She's good.
I've gotten reported for hateful behavior just because I'm like, I don't
No.
really.
Honestly, I
Well,
thought I
you know,
did something wrong whenever you came in here, and you were like, "This woman said this," and I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh no, what I do wrong?"
she came in hot,
no.
but I clarified that shit real quick. We good. We good.
Well, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
No, you're
I
an
didn't
amazing
mean to.
addition to this conversation. Don't you apologize.
Well,
Well,
every panel needs a dinosaur, right?
Hey, 13 minutes. 13 minutes, Addison. 13
We're all
minutes.
watching
I
your
know,
bedtime
right?
schedule, Addison. We want you to sleep.
But
Well,
I think
listen,
I'm seeing a
to.
lot of.
I'm,
I know we say don't read the comments, but I try to keep an eye on kind of what I'm seeing multiple comments of, so that we can maybe kind of pull it in. And I feel like there's so many comments. I know we touched on this earlier, but about this fear surrounding like children and the impact on children and protect the children, and as long as you're not grooming children. And I think that factors into a lot of people's opinions or misunderstandings or fears when it comes towards this topic is my kids, my kids, my kids. of
Yeah.
course it's natural. I mean, I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 2, and I
Oh,
get
boo
it,
boo.
but I think, oh no, not Boo Boo. We lost Boo Boo.
Sorry.
But I understand that instinct of, leave the kids alone, or, that they're not in a place to choose. And I think it becomes a really careful balance of, as a parent, you want to protect your children. And I speak from this really from the heart, because I have a completely straight angel of a child, and I have a trans angel of a child. And it's interesting when they reach these different stages, and who knows where they'll settle when they get to a place where they really can choose kind of who they want to be as a person. But it's, as someone who I've grown up with, I have friends that were trans. I had people that I dated that have now transitioned, and I feel like I've been lucky to be in the vicinity of people from so many different walks of life and have the opportunity to understand in different ways where different people are coming from. But I think it becomes a really touchy subject for parents in particular when it comes to the idea of someone being trans or someone changing their gender. And I've seen other parents around my age really struggle, people that are the most open-minded person you could think of, and then all of a sudden when it's their child or somebody that they know, it becomes a different story.
You know why? The news, the media. Like,
Right.
I'm not trying to be a dick, but the media will portray. So I don't agree with LGBTQ agendas for the most part, but I don't also agree with them being demonized. And there was just that recent case of the 2 gay men who were prominent in the LGBTQ community. They fostered kids, they had kids, and they sex trafficked them. And the news chose the picture of them in front of the pride flag. Like, they demonized them just because they were gay. They demonized the fuck out of them. And so where I don't agree with certain things, like, I can also see where, well, you're demonizing an entire fucking community. And I think that's where it comes from, is that everyday Americans see some things in the media that will demonize a portion of a community, and they run with it. And then it creates fear in the back of their mind.
It gains traction, it spreads through their community.
Going back to Addison in the bathroom. How many instances actually happen on a day-to-day basis across this country? Slim to none. They don't really happen, but that's our fear, is that someone walks into a bathroom who shouldn't be in that bathroom and fucking acts a fool.
Sure.
I'm not saying that Addison did. She, got caught off guard, and whatever happened. But
Texan,
yes.
if I can cut you off real quick, I just want to add a very quick point, because this is a very big focal point for me. Let's not forget that while everybody is attacking transgenders in the bathrooms, they are neglecting the fact that a page of 228 pages was recently released of people that you would suspect to be good, God-fearing people, actually like doing harmful things to children. 228 pages.
So I was going to get to that. So in my personal community, 2 years ago, there was a guy that I would sit side by side with at the bar. I didn't know him, but like, he was a bar patron that I knew. And him and his cousin kidnapped 2 13-year-olds. It happens everywhere. So
it's just like we talked about earlier.
You never know
there are
who is
bad
the person.
people in every walk of life.
Correct.
But it gets sensationalized on the hot topic items of the day.
In certain communities.
We can't just report that this person did this to this person. It's got to be, well, this person who identifies as this, and this. The group that they belong to does not define the things that they as a person chose to do.
Correct. I agree. It sucks because I know a lot of people in the LGBTQ community, or who are gay, trans, bi, whatever, and they would never conduct themselves in that way. And it just sucks that every time something happens within that community, they get lumped into the same fucking boat, and it's like, y'all gotta wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up. Like,
Texan, I'm gonna interrupt you guys because we do have a new person coming in.
Yeah, of course.
In. And unfortunately, I know you're just coming in, but I'm only gonna be live for another few minutes, just because I've been on live for 10 hours now. So
Yeah, it's almost about time for you to
You
clap
got
out.
7 minutes, Daddy. 7 minutes, Daddy.
So can I get your opinion?
If I may intervene, let me just ask a question. Before I start, the question is, are trans women women? Let me just ask, what makes a woman? What is a woman? To anybody in this group chat, what is the definition of a woman? What are we going off of biologically? Are we going off of biologically? We're going off the organs. Are we going off of what they feel in their mind? Like what is a woman? You know.
I'm so glad you asked that question. It is so important.
Because listen, I'm totally for LGBTQ plus. I some of the ideologies and narratives I do not support, but I do support a decent amount of them. But what is a woman? Because are trans women? Me particularly, I could say no. My little
Most,
brother, he is
yeah.
trans.
Most people, in my opinion, and hi, this sounds weird, but hi, Daddy.
Hey,
Nice
buddy,
to
how
meet
you
you.
doing?
I'm Karina. I'm a
Nice to meet
trans
you.
woman.
Nice to meet you.
I love the way that you asked that question because
Sure.
you asked it in a way that opens up to a possibility of different meanings, nuances, which is the way that I answer it, which is, okay, well, first of all, you asked, okay, how are you defining a woman? I think you asked the panel, like, what are you using? What criteria,
Yeah,
right?
what criteria are we on? Are we on scientifically, biologically?
Okay.
Are we on the mental aspect? Like what
Sure.
makes a woman?
So I would say that the main criteria that most of us that we were raised on, and I'm talking about like from 5th to 7th grade biology, we were taught that women have a particular reproductive organ system.
Sure.
They have a vagina.
Sure.
They could produce offspring, and the same thing with men. Men have a penis, and that's how we identify
Yes,
sex.
through
Right?
reproductive systems. Absolutely, yes.
I would say that, and I want to be very careful with this. I would say that I agree with that to a certain degree because
Okay.
as that's only one version of criteria. Okay. I would say
Okay.
yes, that if you were to tell me a woman has a vagina, I would say typically yes, a woman has a vagina. We know that that's nuanced, right? Because there's women that cannot produce children, blah blah blah, things like that. But now the research is showing that gender identity is actually developed in the 4th week of being in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ask me what criteria do I use, for me it's a number of things. It's not just the sex, right? Because when sex is not aligned with our gender identity, that's trans. Like that's the whole basis of being trans.
Yes.
If you were to ask me if I was a woman, I would say yes, because there's not a time in my life where I mean, I remember since I was little, my mind was never worked like a male, and I knew that because I had a dad that reminded me of that every
Okay.
single day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in retrospect, what you're saying, resonate your mother more. It resonated you more to be like,
I would say, yeah, I would
yeah.
say that I resonated with my mother more.
Yeah,
So
more. Yeah.
so the whole reason why people understand their gender when they grow when they're born is you see your mom and your dad and you automatically connect with one more than the other, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
when I was born, I connected with all the females. I mean, you could always catch me in the kitchen making tortillas with all my aunts.
Sure.
Like, so I literally do not know
Now
what it means to be a man.
let me intervene there because
Sure.
I feel that as a collective and as the masses, we put gender roles on doing things. You know, in the kitchen. You know, we put a gender role on that. You know, I'm a cisgender male, straight male.
Sure.
You know, I love to cook. You know, we can't we put a lot of these gender norms, these gender roles on things. You know, but if we're talking about what I go by is biologically. Everybody goes by a different criteria, and that's when honestly it comes into more of a respect factor. Like I respect people's pronouns. I could think a certain way, but I'm going to respect how you feel, respect how, like, if that's your truth and live your truth. Who am I to tell you not to live your truth? Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, me particularly, if we are going by biologically for what has been known and studied years and years and years and years on end, it has been a woman is a there is the X is XX chromosome XX, correct? I'm right there, right?
Yeah, a woman is double X. Yeah.
Okay, a woman is double X. A woman is, could give birth. A woman is has the the reproductive it has a certain reproductive system.
Yes.
So I feel that when we ask the question, what is a woman? Are trans women? I feel like we also have to ask, what is a woman?
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
we
If I could add on to this, something that I feel like is very important because we keep going to the biological aspect is there actually are studies that show trans women and trans men are also biologically
That's
trans
correct.
or also women and men, not necessarily with their reproductive organs, but if you look into their brains, there was studies that showed during the development of the womb, we actually start off with our XX chromosome. So we actually all start off as female fetuses, but then our Y chrome is added in about 4 to 6 months into the development in the womb. And there is a different speed on the process of the neurological development, so your brain, and your physical development, your body. There's a recent study that shows children who claimed to be transgender youth, actually had what seemed to be a stunting growth in their neurological development on their chromosomal development. Either in the brain or in the body. And so there is biological evidence that shows that trans women and men are absolutely a real thing.
Yeah, like me. Listen, I'm not saying that it's not a real thing. I completely respect it. But you said that every fetus is born with XX. Wouldn't that make all? Would that not make? I'm sorry to my ignorance towards this conversation. I'm just really into it a little bit.
It really happens in the womb, Daddy, or Tunka. It really happens in the womb.
So basically what I was saying was we all start off with XX chromosomes, but then our Y chromosome is developed in the 4th to 6th month of our development, and that's why you can only find out the actual sex of your child within, say, 3 to 6 months, is because that is when the development of the reproductive organs begins.
Let me just say that I, as a trans person, I completely understand how weird it is to hear.
No, listen. I have a trans little brother, so
okay.
But I'm very
I feel that. I feel that from you. But like for other people that are denying the science, I understand that it's weird to have grown up believing something a certain way and learning something. Like it's legit knowledge. You learned that a woman is this. You learned that a male is this. All I'm saying is that, and I'm not directing this at you, Danny, I'm directing this at the comments.
Sure.
There is an expansion of knowledge, and I pose the question: is it possible that your knowledge about gender and sex is not as expansive as it should be? Does that make sense? So
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not a scientist, but I feel like in retrospect, we cannot ignore the science. Yes, there's this. Yes, that fetuses are born with double X chromosome. We cannot ignore the science because, as we know, female is reproductive system being able, not having testicles, scrotums, having ovaries and all that other stuff, mumbo jumbo, is being able to birth. So I feel like almost in a sense we're mixing. It's very like a slippery slope of a conversation, man. And this is why it's so. Go ahead.
But honestly, and I love that you're like saying all this stuff because this is the conversation we need to have, because people are forcing me and forcing people like you, like Texan, like Lori, like Rave. They're forcing us to choose one or the other. whose truth is the biggest? Whose truth is the truthest, right? The reality is, Daddy, I would respond to you by saying everything that you just defined a woman as is true for the most part.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying too is it's that truth, but it's also mine. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
I
So
think that's what people can't really grasp is
they can't wrap their head around, neurologically you may feel like as a woman, or neurologically you may feel as a man, but biologically you're not that.
so I kind of want to like ask the panel and people in the I know we're not supposed to address the comments, but
No, we can.
if for example we were to say, if I just provided some data on like, or some information on gender identity is developed in the womb at the 4th week. Sexual organs are starting to develop in the 2nd week of the womb. If the identity is developed in the brain, and the brain is an organ which is part of your biology, can we say that trans women are biological?
I feel like me particularly, I feel like we can't say that trans women are biological. I could totally like assist to it, being more like, oh my god, this is just, it's such a great conversation,
You,
I'm
man.
telling you, this goes.
you want me to fucking derail this entire conversation?
Man.
Because
Questions
listen,
but
listen.
it's 5 in the morning and I won't remember it.
If that's true, then that means there's a conscious being in the womb.
In the womb, exactly. Thank you. Because
It's
I
not-
didn't want to go
no.
there, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, we can't.
No, we're not. I'm not talking about consciousness. I'm talking about the structure of the brain that is connected to gender identity. I'm not talking about psyche. I'm talking about. So what I'm referring to is what they've done is they've taken the brain. They've measured the brains of cisgender women, and I'm just using that term just to explain, right? Cis women, right? They've measured the brains of trans people, and they've seen that the brains of trans people or trans women is very much alike. It's more congruent with a cisgender woman's brain.
Yes, I remember that study. I think it was from the University of Barcelona.
Yeah.
So you may be
Ari,
asking, you may be asking, can we tell if a fetus is going to be born trans? We can tell. That's the truth. But do we want to be able to do that? No, it's unsafe.
Because you would have to do a brain biopsy, correct?
Not only that, but with the current climate, what's stopping a parent from aborting a child who they know is going to be born trans?
That's very true.
That's a good point.
But what I was going to say that's a little bit off topic is a lot of people are like, you're either a man or a woman, but you guys do realize that sex is also like a spectrum, because there's intersex people of the community. In fact, 70% of the human populace is intersex in some way, shape, or form. Just wanted to point that out.
And well, a lot of these studies that are being referenced, I mean, Victoria in the comments made a really great comment of saying, your neurobiology is a part of your biology. And I think that that's the point that's being trying to be made here, is that, your brain is a huge part of your body, and specifically the hormones that your brain produces has so many impacts on who you are as a person, in so many ways, and in the things your bodies do. It's the same way that, like, someone could have, for example, a hormonal pregnancy where you exhibit physically all the symptoms of being pregnant, but you're not pregnant. But your brain has the power to, depending on what hormones it's pumping out, change what your body is doing physically. It has so many implications on how someone is structured genetically, in their neurobiology. And they have done in these studies that are being referenced here. These are the kinds of things you can see. You can look at, a young man who is trans, and even though they may have biologically been born female, they have higher testosterone levels, for example. There are parts that are physically in their body that are not a choice, that changes the way they present, the way they look, the way they feel, the way they identify. And I think that's just the point that's trying to be made here, is that there are physical aspects, and that yes, you can make the argument that of course, you're born with these chromosomes or these chromosomes, and this is what you're identified as biologically, and that's valid and that is fair. And and again, it's like that conversation we were having earlier, that it's a matter of just wanting to understand more, and to understand that while it seems like something that's just black and white, it's not necessarily black and white. We're humans are not that simple. We are not Legos, guys. We're people. Like,
And we're
there are
not-
so many facets to us, and so it's just not that simple.
I know Texan wants to respond, but I also just want to remind everyone that we're talking about a trans population that is super tiny. We're talking, I would say that the majority of people fit into a congruent place, right? So like when y'all say biological women, I understand what you're saying and why you hold on to that term, because most women are born they're born congruent. It's rare. It's a rarity in nature for a person to be born trans like me and the host. So when I make the argument that trans women are also biological women, I'm not saying I am a biological woman the same as Rave is a biological woman. It's a difference. But what should I do with the information that, like, what am I supposed to do with the science? Does that make sense? So Texan, what's your response? Because
before you go ahead and talk, Texan, I just want to address the comments. I'm so sorry. But there are two people that are waiting, and I want to know that I'm going to go off live after Texan speaks, and we do our last comment on the question at hand. So go ahead, Texan. I'm so sorry.
What was your fuck? You lost my train of thought.
Biological woman. Trans are biological women. It starts in the brain. It starts in the womb. I think you were gonna say that you think I look pretty. I think that was something.
Shut the fuck up.
You look so pretty, Karina. Yes.
Thank you. That's really me in the pic, by the way.
I think. No, it was. Oh man, I had so much to say.
I'm so sorry.
Oh fuck. Hold
I
on.
think I asked. I remember you looking up when I asked the question. So if gender identity starts in the womb, then can we say, and if it comes in the brain, right? Can we now say that trans women are also biological?
Okay, so I think again, I think like if we're considering the womb, or what's in the womb, cognizant, then if it's cognizant, then it shouldn't be discarded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's what I was getting at earlier. Like you can't tell me that, well, this baby needs to have its own rights, and then the same person goes, oh no, I'm gonna abort it.
Yeah.
Like that makes absolutely no fucking sense. So when y'all are talking about, if you truly believe, and that's not my belief, but if you truly believe that trans rights are ingrained in the womb or when you're first born, then how many trans people have been aborted?
That's a serious question.
So let's have
serious
another fucking serious conversation that nobody wants to fucking have, right? And while we're on it, I finished my fucking bottle of wine. I'm about to be real. I'm about to be real.
But let me just
the
add
woman
that
who created
the
woman who created the abortion and Planned Parenthood clinics doesn't like a certain demographic of people.
Yeah.
You'll need to Google.
Okay, Texan.
Google.
As a black woman, I'm just gonna say, Texan, I hear you.
I love everybody. I'm
Let
sorry.
me.
I'm sorry. Was I?
But
Am I? Am I? I'm sorry.
Can
no,
I?
you're fine, Texan, but I'm trying to add to your point. Okay. So, I do want to say that, as a mother of two angel babies, I do have to say that it is kind of like the whole abortion topic is kind of wishy-washy for me because honestly, even if it was at the risk of my own life, I would do anything to have be able to have a baby because I've already lost two. But I understand that that's not everybody's choice, and I'm still obviously very pro-choice. But it's like, okay, so with me, it was medical, so they were miscarriages, and if I had chosen, because one of them was the result from SA, but I had tried to take the responsibility of going ahead and having that child and taking care of it. And so even if I had made the choice to do that, if it were a trans youth, you know, that's still going to be my angel baby at the end of the day. But it's like, I honestly, I don't know. It's like I wouldn't sit there and say, well, that's a trans baby, so I'm going to do everything to keep it if I'm not financially able to support it and love it and care for it in the way that I can. Because honestly, let's be honest, the foster care system fucking sucks. Adoption literally it costs as much as a house. And I'm not going to put my child through that, especially whenever I know that they're going to go through something so incredibly hard, such a hard journey. So I feel like if I had
interject?
to,
Can I interject real fast? This
yeah.
is my biggest complaint with conservatives or Republicans. The adoption system or gaining children through means of circumstances like that are like, you know, drug dealers or whatever that fall in bad circumstances. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. CPS system, the fucking oh, it's so corrupt. It's so corrupt. It's so corrupt. We need to work for better systems where children can be adopted and live decent fucking lives. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think
Oh, but yeah, so basically what I was going to finish that off with is if I was not able to take care of it and with the child being, if I could tell from the neurological science, if there was a safe way to be able to say, oh, this is going to be a trans child that I am developing, I would still have to make the hard decision to abort the child because not only will it be going to a foster care system because I cannot take care of it. Literally, I was 17 whenever I was pregnant with that child. And so if I had made the decision to abort that child, I'm going to stick to my stance, even if it is a trans child, because not only are they going to have to go through one of the hardest journeys in their life without knowing their biological mother, they're also going to have to go through that journey not knowing their biological mother and not knowing what their identity is until they can figure it out. It's like that's not something that I would ever want to put a child through.
I think Texan's point circles back to the discussion earlier in these panels that you know, something that Maura was saying, for example, that a lot of these problems that come down to debate or a vast difference in opinion, they have a lot to do with a failure in systems and support
Yes.
for different things, especially medically. You know, just like Texan is saying, you know, a lack of genuine resources and actual positive outlets. You know, it's really easy to say, oh, well, you can just adopt or you can just send them to foster care or you can just, is there actually a positive, genuine system for those children to go to? And it just goes back to that, you know, like medical care, the issues that Maura was bringing up with medical care in Florida and things like that. That's like we've said, I think 1,000 times on all of these different panels, that there are other factors in these issues that bring in the problems people have. And it's a matter of failings in other places that are relevant to the topic at hand.
In my opinion,
Cut you
the
guys off. I'm really sorry, but I have to address this comment because it's absolutely disgusting and no one should ever say this. Crame VRJGW just said, well, you shouldn't get knocked up, kid. I want to let you know that I was in fact sexually assaulted. Under the influence, I was drugged and sexually assaulted, so please don't say that. That's severely disrespectful. Severely disrespectful.
Can you tell me where that is?
Crame VRJGW.
So Rave, I really like that you mentioned systems, because one of the things that I cannot wrap my brain around is we were all taught that a woman has a vagina, a male has a penis, a woman has XS chromosomes, a male has XY, um, women have gametes, and blah blah blah, right? So when a baby is born, they're not born men and women. They're born babies and they're assigned a sex, right, by the doctor.
No, they're
What the
assigned to sex through they're assigned to sex biologically. I think we're missing the science here. Uh, when babies are in the womb, they are either male or female.
Yes.
I feel like we're kind of we're mixing the science. You know, like I don't think it's that it could go really into that deep, and we could really into that. We really can't, like, I don't believe that we can really know if a child is going to be trans or not. I mean, I could say almost in the sense of a family friend of mine, two trans mother, trans father, uh, adopted a child, and what do you know? The child came out to be trans. So
Yeah.
we could also say that your environment could also, um,
It could make it difficult.
your environment could also make a difference into that.
Yeah.
So we know through science that male and female, we know XX and we know XY. Um, Gender dysphoria comes with it's I feel is more, is it not more of a mental thing, or is it?
Gender dysphoria, not all trans people experience gender dysphoria, but gender dysphoria, people think it's a mental illness, and yes, it's in the DSM-5, but a gender dysphoria is the symptom that's experienced by being trans. It's one symptom, but it doesn't mean that every trans person experiences it. In my opinion, the gender dysphoria comes from a pressure in the environment. The environment tells you, hey, you're incongruent, so you should be unhappy about that, right? Because there's some trans people that don't experience gender dysphoria or gender dysphoria. But Daddy, I actually agree with what you said about the biological. You were actually making the point that I was trying to get at,
Go
was
ahead.
that we claim to use all these ways of like assigning sex, right? But we don't really know, for example, the chromosomal makeup of someone unless the doctor does a test, right? So they don't do chromosomal testing on babies. They look at ultrasounds, they take blood work, and they literally point and they're like, hey, we see a penis, it's a boy.
Okay, so how about we out of the womb? So out of the womb, we see a penis and then we see a vagina. So what? So are we basing it off of what the baby thinks it is, or are we basing it off of its biological under regions? You know what I'm saying? So
My argument is that I think we need to be more receptive to the possibility that if a baby is born with a particular genital makeup, we need to be open to the fact that they may not align with their gender identity may not align with it.
but does that
But
make I'm so sorry, Khalil.
sure,
But
no,
does that make the baby? But does that make the baby not a female or a male? Like
yeah,
we definitely have to take into consideration that, okay, yes,
yes,
it has this genital makeup, but
yeah,
it also could feel like later down the
correct,
road in life, when it gains consciousness, that, oh, I feel more feminine or I feel more masculine. But we cannot
correct,
we can't take away the fact of that the out
yeah,
of the womb, genetically,
yeah.
biologically, the baby is male or female, because that's all we know. There's not a
Yeah,
third
I
one.
agree. I agree with you. And it's the easiest way to assign a sex. So I would say if a baby is born with a penis, we assign him male until we can learn more information about this child, until the child tells us what they feel like, what we see as a parent, what they are identifying. Because the parent knows. My mom knew from day one that there was an incongruence. Parents know.
Mhm.
But So I'm with you.
Can I ask?
In
how-
consciousness
no.
or out of consciousness? When
Uh,
with how you were like when you were first born, or growing
See,
up,
it's not
did your parents know that?
it's not consciousness. It's literally identity. I literally thought that what I had was a vagina. I literally felt connected with my mom. That I'm like, hey mom, when am I gonna have a baby? And I was asking this at 3 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's not consciousness. That's literally like I literally was I from the day I could walk, I was already like wanting to wear dresses and things like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had an older sister. I wanted to play dress up too and whatnot. But
Yeah.
with her, like I would do the same thing that she does. When I was growing up, because that was my older sister. But but now I'm a straight male. And I subscribe to more of
Was
a
there a
yeah.
point in your life that you knew that you were a man?
I feel like that's a crazy question. I feel like I never really was I like the things more of what my mother did than my father did. I
So I,
feel like it. Go ahead.
the reason I ask you that question, because most people struggle to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm asking you that is because you are essentially asking me the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I could say yes, and then I could say no. I feel like it was just something that came. Um, but I've always liked to do, you know, guy. I would put it quotes on
Yeah.
it, guy things. You know what I'm saying?
So I guess my
Um,
question is for you. Then you were saying about the dress up just a few minutes ago. Um, th- does that make you any less of a man, or if since
no, that just makes me as a child so impressionable to my environment. If I see my older sister doing it, I think I want to do it too. I want to have fun with my older sister. I feel like that, in retrospect, it just makes me more impressionable. But I feel like we cannot ignore the science. Neurologically, you may feel as if a woman, but biologically, you would be a male. Listen, I respect transgenders. I respect I respect everybody. I respect people in general. I look at people as people.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. But I do feel like children are very, very impressionable. Children are sponges. If your mother's around more than your father, chances are you're going to grow up to be a little bit more feminine. If my father's around more than my mother, chances are I'm possibly going to grow up to be a little bit more masculine. So we cannot take away the environment of which we are given in. Granted, Karina said in the beginning of the conversation, she was around. She didn't subscribe to her father. She was around her. She correct, Karina?
Yes, please. Thank you.
She was more in touch with her mother. So so I feel like we do.
Hey, Tunka.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna call you daddy, so that's not my stance. But I have a question for Addison and Karina. Are y'all planning, and this may be personal, but are y'all planning on getting surgery to complete the process of being a part of how y'all feel?
I'll let you go first, Karina.
Me personally, first of all, that's a very personal question, and I like the way you asked it. So for y'all in the comments, take notes, because that's how you respectfully ask a question to a trans woman, right?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
ask for permission and you get consent first. And
Yeah, you don't have to tell me shit.
So, but let me just say, being trans is so nuanced as well. It depends on gender. It depends on what you feel gender dysphoric about, right? So, for example, some
That's
trans
my point.
women,
That's my point.
yeah, some trans women feel very dysphoric about their male genitalia, right? So, I happen to not feel that dysphoria with my male genitalia, but I do feel it with my chest. So, I have breasts. Does that make sense? I got rid of I got laser hair removal, all of that, right? I'm on hormones, and by the way, Daddy, going back to that whole
No,
biological
it doesn't make sense because I'm fucking learning about shit. I'm gonna be honest. I'm learning.
Let me
I'm
just
learning.
add for nuance before our beautiful host gives her answer. Just for the biological argument, right when I started hormones, right before, my doctor took my base levels of my hormones, because everyone makes testosterone, everyone makes estrogen.
Yeah.
They took my base threshold, and my testosterone was almost non-existent. And this was me before hormone replacement therapy.
I mean,
So-
there was a time where my testosterone was very, very low, but I think that was just because of within the foods I was eating.
And my estrogen was really high. So before
Yeah.
hormone replacement therapy, I developed small breast, But
Yeah.
Okay, so I want Addison's answer, but I also want before we leave this topic, I want to talk to you again, Karina, about hormones and stuff like that later on, like next discussion, next live. But Addison, what do you want to do? I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong by asking. I'm just trying to learn.
No, you're not wrong at all. So with that aspect, at some point I hope to get FFS surgery, which is facial feminization surgery at some point.
Sure.
I would love to get breast augmentation.
What does that do, if you don't mind me asking?
So for some trans people, they don't like the bone structure of
Okay.
the face.
Okay.
The nose is too big, the jaw is too big, and women tend to have that smaller jaw. So in
I
that
mean,
aspect,
depending on the woman, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Before we end, I just wanted to add something. But keep going. Addison is your name, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do feel that dysphoria with my bottom parts. So at some point, yes, I would love to get this surgery. Right now, I'm a college student. What the hell do I know? I can't afford it. I cannot afford that shit. Excuse my language, but I mean I just can't. But I mean, at some point, yes, I would love to. But there definitely are those people that are gonna be like, you're gonna ruin your body. That's just not allowed. But with that aspect, it's just, is it your body? Is it your effing body?
I would say just make sure that before you do it,
you really know this is something that
you're going to be 100% satisfied.
Yeah. Because
don't listen to anybody except yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just want to piggyback on what Texan just said real quick. There was a story about a transgender female to male. There was a transgender female to male. And they went through, I'm going to say they here because I don't know what to identify them as. They went through a complete, reconstruction of their body, breast augmentation, bottom surgery, face, this, that, and the third. And they said they still felt male. And they actually almost in a sense said it was a mistake. They didn't know that this is what, they didn't actually, it wasn't their truth. So they felt as if they were transgender, but it turns out they were just more of a feminine person. So they took something completely to the extreme, and now they're saying they live a terrible life. They have no friends, they have no family, they don't have a lot of things. They're not happy within who they are. So that's when I feel like people can say, oh, maybe gender dysphoria and maybe all these could be categorized almost as a mental illness. But I'm not saying that it's a mental illness, but I'm saying it also could be categorized as that. So we really have to take, all those points and really and really add them together, because I feel like you
But
know,
the question about that person, for me as a mental health professional, my question would be, are you trans to begin with?
that's what their story was. They felt trans to begin with. They felt the same way that you feel, Karina. So,
Yeah.
like, but they realized later down the road in life that when
Yeah.
they got all these surgeries and when they did all these different things, that it wasn't actually them. It
Yeah.
was just they
Mhm.
feeling. They just probably felt a little bit more feminine.
Yeah.
So, could we really categorize, being transgender and having gender dysphoria and having all these things as more of like a mental
Yes and no.
thing,
Yes and
or
no.
no?
I think, in my opinion, I think that it's fair to say that from birth, when we're born, we're all assigned a gender. We're biologically a male or a female, and there are a multitude of both biological and external factors that are in different variations and extremities for each individual person that define who they grow into be as a person. And there is no one size fits all. I think that's where we get into trouble so much, especially in conversations like this, is trying to find a way to pin it down with a specific definition that fits everyone in that category. And everyone's going to have different biological factors, different neurological factors. I say this, I mean, Karina is a therapist. I'm a nurse. I've worked in the medical field. There's so many different factors to consider that there just isn't a one size fits all answer to it. And just like in any other thing, obviously the situation you're talking about is definitely an extreme. And I feel for that person, and it happens to so many people. So this isn't a one-off situation, but I mean, people can make drastic misidentifications in themselves in so many different ways aside from gender. I mean, it could be something as benign as, you spend 10 years dedicating yourself to a career that you think is your life's passion, only to discover that it's not at all, and you've wasted a huge portion of money and life and investment in something that was not what you thought it was for you. And that happens because we're humans, and that's just as relevant for someone who's trans as to someone who picked the wrong career, as to someone who married the wrong person. There's so many other things, but I think that just in general in life, yes, we have biological males, we have biological females, but there are other factors, both biological and external, that color and shape the people that we grow into be. And it takes time and understanding to figure that out for ourselves.
So, what part of biological would trans people? I don't want to say struggle with, because that's not right.
I promise you, I'm not going to feel offended. You just say
No,
whatever.
you're good. Go.
Yeah, so
I feel
what?
safe.
So what? Okay, so when we talk about biology, we're talking about the whole body, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So where would there be a non-congruence? Would it be?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
The non-congruence is in the identity, literally the structure of if you don't want to use the word identity, it's literally the structure of the brain.
Okay, so okay, good. So it would be a non-congruence within the structure of the brain.
The brain,
So
but in comparison to the sex, to the anatomical sex. Does that make sense? So my body can be an anatomical sex, but the structure of my brain is incongruent with that, as compared to someone like you, for example, that was born congruent with the structure of your brain and your genital makeup.
So let me ask you a question, Karina. So non-congruent.
Yes.
That would almost be in the sense of not straight.
It would be trans.
Inside. Say it again.
It would be trans. Straight, because straight is the sexuality.
No. I'm not talking about like being straight sexuality. I'm talking about like congruence. Like what is the definition of congruence?
You could think of it as aligned.
Aligned. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that the hormones and the makeup of your brain chemistry match the anatomical makeup of your body.
So, and this fits into the conversation of the word transitioning, because not all trans people transition, right? So when someone is born with the incongruence, right, their brain structure is this particular gender, their anatomical sex is the opposite. When they decide to transition, what they're really doing is aligning their body to match their brain structure better. It's not going to be 100%, because even with someone that gets sex reassignment surgery, I don't care what trans women say about getting bottom surgery, it's not going to work the same as a cisgender woman. It's not. The orgasms
So
are
that's
different.
that's where we need to meet. The
And
meeting of the
men
mind.
know that
Mhm.
men do know the difference. There was someone else in the
we need to
previous
meet where like trans doesn't mean the surgery, right? Correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So people think this is where the kids conversation comes up, and I know we're running out of time, but I saw a lot of comments about
we already ran out of time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we got on
Texans
night.
out
We
of
got on
line.
morning now. So.
Addison's way past bedtime.
This is why it's important to talk to kids about this, and I'm going to say why. Kids should not be transitioning before, they should not be transitioning like in terms of surgery before 18. They should not.
Not at all. Not
But
at
what
all.
but let me just say, when you take hormones, that's considered medical transitioning, okay? When you take hormones, right, which is something that our body produces, there's also a variable that's called socially transitioning, right? Meaning you present the opposite sex by the way you dress, by the way you whatever carry yourself. What I'm arguing is that it's important because, like I said before, I knew I was trans all my life. It's important to have these conversations because it's really the make it or break it for certain kids not to unalive themselves.
Don't
It really is.
And
don't
then,
you
Karina,
don't
if I can add a quick point. Sorry, Texan. I know you were trying to say something. I'm super sorry. But there's actually studies that show that if children start taking hormones and attempt to get surgeries at such a young age, it can actually have the opposite effect of a successful gender reassignment surgery or sex reassignment surgery. Say if you are a male to female transgender person and your parents are all for it, everything for it, and you sign off on it, you're not going to be able to have a fully functioning like vaginal canal if you didn't let that skin develop so that they have the skin to work with, because you got the hormone blockers and all of that, and you weren't able to develop properly, so that they can use that skin to graft it into your new vagina.
Yes.
I think that we as a whole we need to allow kids.
We're focused on the genitals, but the mind is not fucking there either. They're still children. So
yes, I mean, I would argue even past the 18. To be honest, I mean, I think it's scientifically proven that our brain does not fully develop until our early 20s. I can guarantee you that the person I was when I was 18 years old
is not the person
is not even
close.
A shadow of who I am today as a 32-year-old woman, or who I was at 25. And so I understand that at 18, I don't mean that in any kind of a diminishing or insulting way. I just think that it takes so much time for us as human beings to grow and fully develop into a stage where we have all of the pieces of ourselves to make an informed decision, and we do not all reach that point at the exact same rate. But there are benchmarks, and I know that I just noticed I know the comments, but there's a lot of comments. We have kind of a new flurry of people that are really concerned again on the kid issue and the stop mutilating our kids, and no one is mutilating children, and that actually is taken very seriously in the medical community. And there are benchmarks and biological points you need to get through developmentally before those things come into play. And
I think in general that we do have to.
That's where the trans community should speak up.
Rave.
That's we need your voices just to say, hey, we're not fucking doing this.
Yeah, but
that's the problem. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, hey.
But let me just add too that Rave and Daddy, I'm assuming that y'all's belief is a little bit more like Rave. I really like what you just said, but you're also talking from a point of privilege when it comes to your congruence. So when you say that 18-year-olds are not developed enough to understand these things, I agree with you to a certain degree, right? I agree with you. But when you feel this incongruence, 18 years, 12 months in a year, 365 days of feeling incongruent, I'm telling you, it is not easy to live that
I
way.
mean, that could be a very that could be
And
like
I
a
just want
very
to say
long
that's
time.
why I'm saying it's
Yeah,
different for everyone.
I feel like
I'm not trying
I
to.
totally understand. Agree with what Karina is saying, that it's not almost in the sense where it's safe.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, I don't think kids should be, I'm more of a moderate thinker when it comes to this. We really should not be thinking about surgeries unless it's like life threatening, and I don't even know when that would be. But
Absolutely.
there's really no harm
Okay, that's fine. So then what should we be focusing on? Because I think the trans community is getting attacked for everything.
Mhm.
So what is the most poignant topic we can fucking target
I feel.
to
I'm sorry,
get
Kevin.
y'all out of the fucking limelight? You know,
I'm.
am I
I
like
feel that us with kids being so impressionable and being such sponges, I feel like that we should honestly allow kids to honestly be kids, whether they feel what they feel. The reason why I say gain consciousness is because I feel like kids really don't know what they are. You know, like when I was a youngin, I was saying I liked boys. You know why I said I liked boys? Because boys were cooler than girls. You know what I'm saying?